We are live. We are live. Hi, everyone. I'm Angela Fraser, and I am the creator and host of the Hair Stories Project. It is a place where we share the hair centered stories of Black women. And I have with me today this beautiful Senator Natalie Murdock from Durham, North Carolina. She is the epitome of representation matters.
Okay.
Um, you can find out a lot about her online, but the key things that I want to point out that really just kind of struck me as profound about her work is that representation is not just about what people look like,
Mm-hmm.
it's about what people are about and what history they bring to their work and what they are sensitive to and what causes they want to um, promote. That is why representation matters. And we will talk a little bit about the Crown Act, which stands for Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair. And Senator Murdock is a co-sponsor of that bill in the North Carolina Senate. We'll talk about that a little later because I want you to get to know more about the person and then her work. But I noticed a few things that I wanted to bring to your attention around her win. So she won her seat back in November of 2020, yeah, brand new senator. She won, the margin is well, 83.6% to 16.4%. So
Yes.
by all accounts, a landslide victory, which is amazing. She is the youngest Black woman to serve in the North Carolina Senate and the first under 40.
First on the 40.
And everything else I think you can learn about her, except her platform is we can't wait. We
Yes.
can't wait. And when you read that and then see what she's been involved with since November, guys, we just started April
Yes.
and she is on 50 of the 400
Yes.
committees,
Yes.
on 50 of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And her association, her sponsorship, co-sponsorship of the Crown Act bill um, was introduced to the Senate on March 1st.
Mhm.
So highly active. She came ready. She was ready before she got elected. And so we're going to hear a little bit about her journey, um, particularly her hair journey.
Yes.
And as always, I start with asking the question, what are your roots?
Yes. Yes. So my roots, I was born and raised in Greensboro, North Carolina. And as I'll share a little bit later, just really, really grounded in family, a history of advocacy, a history of political activism, a history of speaking up when you think that things aren't right or justice isn't being served. But also, it doesn't come from a history of elected officials. I'm the first in my family to serve as an elected official. I think in another life, my father actually probably would have been on city council. I mean, he was that community advocate, very active in the NAACP. He was actually honored as a Man of the Year for the NAACP Greensboro chapter some years ago, and was always at city council or the county commissioner meetings in Guilford County, advocating for equity and justice. He was very active with the prison ministry, and I have to get that name, but he worked with someone that actually was granted clemency some years later.
Wow.
The Duke Clinic, they work on the Innocence Project, and
Mhm.
he was also working with that same individual who years later was granted clemency. So have deep, deep ties through my father and also through my grandmother. Was sharing with Angela earlier. She actually started a strike in Greensboro for
Listen, guys,
chapter.
excuse me one moment.
Yeah.
Everyone, whatever you're doing, just pay attention because this is an amazing story and we need to know it. We need to know this woman's name So
Yes.
please listen. Okay, go.
Yes, thank you so much as we center ourselves and lean into this political moment that we're in, who rightfully so, due to, years of work, is currently really being led by the foundation, led by Black Lives Matter, and just losing so many of our Black men and women. But as we reflect on the civil rights movement and compare it to the moment we're in now, which is kind of reinventing, or maybe 2.3 or 3.0 of the civil rights movement, I think we forget the struggle our ancestors endured, whether that be through slavery. I skipped over this part, oftentimes wonder not only the voyage to even get here, as a slave, but I often, whenever I'm tempted to complain about anything, or when I do feel tired, say, what if literally I'm the byproduct of an ancestor who was handcuffed while they, gave birth to who led to me even being on this earth. So what right do I have to complain? So when we talk about struggle and long-term struggle and the trauma that we had to endure to even have ancestors that remained alive so that we can be here, I think we need to start with that struggle and trauma. And then when you fast forward to the civil rights movement, folks forget when they see a bus boycott, or they see children being fire hosed, or being attacked by dogs. I think we really forget the long-term time frame of just how long they struggled, where they were physically uncomfortable, where their lives were threatened. So when we look at, bus boycotts nationwide, and particularly throughout the South, that went on for months and months, sometimes even a year. I think oftentimes we forget that. We think we'll show up and demonstrate, and after one or two actions, things will just automatically be changed. And history shows that that's not true. These are multi-year campaigns. And so my story with my grandmother, she was a cafeteria worker in Greensboro, North Carolina, worked for the public schools. And as we know, those are staff members that pour into our young people, pour into those students, where it could be that cafeteria worker that gives you that wisdom and that knowledge and that support that you need to get through the day, to tell you you're beautiful, and to support you literally by feeding you. So she was that leader in her school, and was honestly inspired by the civil rights movement, by the A&T 4, World War 4, Greensboro 4, and marched alongside them with her two daughters. My two aunts were in high school at the time, and they actually ended up in prison. So she lost them. They were arrested and in jail. But on a separate occasion, my grandmother was so inspired by that movement, said, wait a minute, why are we making less than $3 an hour as cafeteria workers in Greensboro, North Carolina? And the story that her coworkers share is she literally told them, put your utensils down. We're literally going to stop working. We are leaving today. We're leaving. And, before, there was no organized union. She initially was essentially was their representative that would lead these meetings and say, we want higher wages, and this is why, and this is what we, want that to look like. This is the pay that we want. And so back to kind of the long-term struggle that you endure, to push change forward, they went for months. They were striking. And it actually was the Black community and the Black church that kept them going. They would sustain them and make sure that, their children were still fed, that, they would still have what they needed to support their households. And if my grandfather was still with me, I would love to ask him, what was that conversation like when your wife comes home to say, I started the strike at work and I won't
Put
be
my
bringing
utensils
home
down.
any money. We have 6 children. I put my utensils down and we're striking. So I always wonder, what his response was to that. But she stood up for what she believed in, and it worked. And
Can you please
after a
say her
series,
name?
Dorothy Lee Jackson Murdock.
Dorothy Lee
Dorothy
Jackson
Lee
Murdock.
Jackson Murdock. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dorothy Lee Jackson Murdock. And I think she's also an example of so many of our ancestors, those trailblazers and pioneers, didn't sign up to be nationally known or to have their names written in a history book. They were simply standing up for what they believed in. And she is just a fighter. She's just someone that had no issue speaking her mind and speaking up, and was inspired, by the civil rights movement and things that were happening around her, and started to question, inequality.
Right.
And stood up for that. And after negotiation, she was able to get the city to agree to pay cafeteria workers $4 an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. She was tired of being tired. That's what it sounds like.
She was tired of being tired, and in her honor, one of the first bills I signed on to with Senator Don Davis was to raise the pay for non-certified staff in the schools to $15 an hour,
Wow.
so that we can normalize that, because in every community, a lot of these communities, some of the greatest or largest employers are your local school system. So
Yeah.
if we can get those staff up to $15 an hour, that will really, really be helpful, specifically in a lot of these rural areas, for them to be able to pay their bills and keep food on the table.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. Okay, so we know what stock you have come from. So tell us a little bit about how you first became aware of your hair. Was there a particular event, or just playing in it? Whatever it is for you, share that with us, please.
Yes, I think, like so many young Black girls, when I was fully aware of my hair and the texture of my hair, it was when I developed a passion for swimming
Oh,
and water and rain, and kind of what that entails. So I remember being in elementary school, and my mom did not want me to take swim class in the winter. So she did not want to, quite frankly, have to deal with rebraiding my hair throughout the entire year. So I only had swimming class in the summer, for that reason. When you typically have, for me, it was, braids with the beads and everything, but it was just kind of too much work throughout the year to keep, my braids intact. And so I think that's when I learned that. I also have another hair story of my hair was not processed until I was, I think, about 15 years old. Because when I was a freshman in high school, I was still just doing the press and comb. And I remember being probably about 9 or 10 years old, and it was a beach trip with family members, and my cousin had a perm, and so she's swimming, and her hair just kind of slicks down after being wet, and I'm thinking, oh, mom's gonna do the same thing, and it's not. My mom's like, "What did you do to your hair? And what happened here?" So I think that's when I learned the difference of, oh, okay, my hair isn't processed, so it takes a little work, for it to be straight. But I also remember looking forward to the summers to get those braids. I just remember how excited I would be every year. Back then, micro braids also became really popular after some time. Now I don't do those anymore. But I remember looking forward to the summer, to have braids. And for me, quote unquote, natural was a pressing comb with a flame. Old school, where there's grease, and you go to the salon,
right, right.
and get your hair pressed with a hot comb
Yeah,
over an actual flame.
right,
Yes.
right, right, right. With the pomade on the back
On
of
the
the
hand,
hand.
yep, and you put it on there, and do the hot comb. And what led me to end up processing my hair actually was being a cheerleader. I was very active. I was in sports, and so peer pressure. Not that I felt forced, but I said, well, it's easier for my friends because they can, use gel and all this other stuff, and their hair slicks down,
Yeah.
and just experience so much breakage that I think I was probably in my early 20s when I stopped using any chemicals. So no color, no perms, anything, probably since about 2007.
Okay. Wow. Wow. Yeah, this is I mentioned to you that I was born in Jamaica. I came here when I was about 9. And so this idea of going down south, because
Hmm.
I grew up in Brooklyn, and so that was something that I wasn't culturally, it's not, we don't do that in Jamaica, so having all my friends, oh, I'm going down south. I didn't know what south was.
Yeah.
I didn't know the difference between North Carolina and South Carolina. It was just going south. My friends weren't around during the summer. They always came back with their hair braided.
Yes.
And so it was this thing that I always felt so separate from.
Yeah.
And now, just having spent decades here and now living in the South, it's just so interesting to kind of hear the the other side of things, all of this stuff, the swimming and the all the reasons why there was this cycle around hair braiding,
Yes.
which isn't something that's prominent in Jamaican culture.
Mhm.
Okay, so I want to get to how you became involved with Crown, the Crown Act. I'm going to
Mhm.
tell viewers again that CROWN stands for Create a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair. I want to mention too that Senator Murdock co-sponsored a bill, Senate Bill 165. It's House Bill 170, and those are companion bills. And I'm calling these numbers out because we are going to have a call to action, right? We are about action. Senator Murdock is here really epitomizing progress and taking action. And she talked about her grandmother. And one of the things that struck me is how individual changes. You know, we think that change, when we think of change, we think of a movement, but we don't often consider that the movement starts with a single
Mhm.
action, you know, a single
Yes.
person saying enough, you know, and so I think when we focus on that, we start to see that we as individuals really have a responsibility to do that, right? If you don't,
Mhm.
there's some brilliance, some God-given assignment that you have that you are not moving into
Mhm.
because you may think that, what can I do? I'm only one person. Well, maybe you're
Yes.
that person who needs to show up. I don't think that your grandmother, I'm going to say her name again, Dorothy Lee Jackson Murdock, there's a power in speaking one's name. And so
Mhm.
we don't have to wait until people pass away or get murdered to speak their name.
Yes.
Dorothy Lee Jackson Murdock.
Yes.
I think about all of these, sorry, I meander a little bit. I'll come right back. But as you talked about her work in the cafeteria, you know, I'm a product of public schools also. And
Mhm.
I remember how many cafeteria workers would supplement children's meals, the
Yes.
money, because they didn't
Yes.
have, and there were always these strict rules around doing that, but they
Mhm.
always found a way to give a little extra or just so I saw your grandmother doing that as you told her story, you know, and so anyway, individual action is really important. And
Mhm.
so coming back now to this, to the Crown Bill, tell me how you got involved with it and what was kind of the spark around that.
Yeah, and thank you for that because I know you asked, for the history of my crown, and I'm glad that you brought my grandmother up again because both of my grandmothers actually had very fine hair where they just kind of took water and slicked it back, and that was about all they needed to do. And so I haven't really thought much about it until you were talking, and it make actually causing me to remember the same grandmother that started the cafeteria strike predominantly wore her hair natural. Before that was a phrase we even really said towards the end of her life. She wore a lot of units, but had very fine hair and was
Mhm.
proud, wearing her hair naturally. So she would be thrilled to hear about this bill. But my work with the Crown Act, back to lifting people up and speaking their names, have to lift up Ajwa Asamoah. So she is a force to be reckoned with. You can do a quick online search and see all the amazing products and projects that she's been a part of. But the first Crown Act bill that was signed into law in California, you will see her featured as one of those Black women that are literally standing behind the governor of California, Governor Newsom, as he signs this bill. He is prominently features those women, knowing that if it were not for them, this issue would not have even been on his radar. So she is I believe a part of her specialty is actually in political psychology, but she's been in the equity space for some time. Back to the schools conversation, So she's really on the, I guess, kind of the cutting edge, or in that space of looking at equity and how it impacts every industry, every aspect of our life. So she was working on this bill in a number of states. I believe New York and California were the first two to kind of come up with the concept of why is it that if someone has a report of hair discrimination or an issue, if they file that, which the NAACP did with a case some years ago, why does it not make it that far? You know, how can you make the case for hair discrimination? So an attorney had a brilliant idea to say, well, your hair is tied to your race and ethnicity. Race and ethnicity are covered and protected by law. So why not your hairstyle if it is directly connected to your race and ethnicity? The way that someone brought it up to me was, for anyone to have to get a job and for them to, you know, believe that they have to alter something that isn't acceptable, the way that it grows out of their head, and to quite literally damage your hair just for the sake of employment. That's really the heart of what the Crown Act is, to say the way that your hair comes out of your head is just fine. You should not be forced to alter that just for your schooling, for employment, you know, no matter what that medium is. You should not be discriminated because of that. I think nationally, when a lot of the Crown Acts movement really took hold, was a wrestling match that I believe was in New Jersey. A young Black student, I believe he was either a junior or a senior in high school, and he had locks. And as we all know, with all sporting events, I was very athletic. You come into, you know, a track meet, a swim meet, whatever it is, knowing what the rules and regulations are. For whatever reason, during this wrestling match, that's when that referee made that call to say, "Oh, you're going to have to cut off your locks just to move forward with this wrestling match." When surely you saw this young man as he entered
Yeah.
the room. So why is it that once he's actually wrestling for a title
Yeah.
with his teammates, does he have to cut his hair?
Mhm.
So kind of as that case was really becoming popular, through having a relationship with Ajwa Asmo, as she invited me to come to a national briefing on the Crown Act. So now senior advisor, back then Congressman Cedric Richmond, Congresswoman Marcia Fudge, who's now Secretary of HUD. The list goes on and on of these prominent leaders of the Congressional Black Caucus, gathered with Ajwa and Black Joy Collective representatives were there from Dove. Dove nationally has a campaign that I'm sure a lot of you've seen at home about, you know, natural hair and your hair being beautiful, the way that it grows out of your scalp. So during that convening of folks from all over the nation, we received a briefing, again, a study that Dove paid for, to show that hair discrimination is a very, very real phenomenon, particularly in the workplace. There were HR professionals that gave anonymous accounts of saying that, you know, applicants that had natural hair were viewed of as unprofessional or unkept. This was documented. They also did a survey where Black men and women admitted to saying, yes, I have felt discriminated as a result of my hair. I think it's cost me promotions. I think it's cost me the ability to have access to promotions in the workplace. So they were brilliant in saying, let's document these issues. And so I think that's kind of when I really kind of caught the bug of, yes, why is this acceptable? And I think the best thing about that event is, since there were women from all over the nation at that Capitol Hill briefing, we were sharing stories that we don't share with anyone. So I think the beauty of this bill is also having those conversations. The Crown campaign here in North Carolina, they call it a Crown conversation. They say, what's your hair story? And we aren't sharing those hair stories of, if you know, I know attorneys who, when the time comes to take that picture as a part of the law firm, oh, maybe I should straighten my hair for this official portrait.
Or you look one way in the interview and then you change when, because
bingo.
you know that's what gets you the job, is looking one way, and then you can be yourself.
You do enough to get through the door. Exactly. You do enough to get through the door. And I'll the other example I'll bring, that's a part of my story, is as an elected official, if you're a Black woman, you're always thinking of, consistency,
Yeah.
because I know as Black women, you have related to having twists in your hair. Folks
Mhm.
act like they don't even know who you are.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
walk past you and say, "Oh, that's you," you know. So for me, it really became about
Wow.
consistency. That if they see this picture on a flyer, you know, with me running for office, I want them to know who I am when they go to the voting booth. But do have to highlight, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Congresswoman Joanna Hayes, who also has that story of campaigning and saying, "I'm a Black girl, I wear hoops, and I have braids in the summer." So she had her braids and told her team, "Yes, I'm running for Congress. I will be having braids." We've also seen that with Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who now has been very open about her struggle with alopecia.
Yeah.
But I remember what it meant to me to see her run for Congress with twists. I
Yes.
mean, I felt that. I said,
Yes.
wow, you know, Lauren Underwood. So all of this is why I wanted to be a part of the Crown Act movement, because it is a movement.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I hope you guys are hearing just all of the tributaries from this. You think it's one thing, it's only defined one way, but it becomes this hub of almost getting people to see us, you know, and the things that are important, tying back to representation. Had it not been for someone like you and others
Mm,
like you, who
yes,
would think?
yes,
You know, I was speaking to a friend of mine, a Black man, and he sees that there's all this natural hair going on now, so he doesn't think it's a problem anymore. He thought it
yes,
wasn't a problem anymore,
yes,
you know, because he sees, but as you said, and as we have all experienced, it remains a problem.
yes,
And just because we choose to show up one way and advocate for ourselves and have agency over how we show up as it relates to our hair, it doesn't mean that the systems don't make it hard for us,
yes,
you know, that it's not something we have to really push through every morning. You know what I mean? So just because we do, it doesn't mean that it is easy that
yes.
we do this. And it needs to be more easy, because why? Why not? It's just kind of ridiculous when you think about it. So thank you for kind of just staying with that, and bringing it now to the Senate floor. What do you think is going to happen with it? How is it looking, and what is I just watched the Schoolhouse Rock about the
Oh,
bill.
yes, yes, yes,
So I was thinking about just that whole process and how few bills really become law. So what
yes.
do you think is going to happen with this Crown Act bill?
Yes, thank you so much, Angela. I think that's the perfect way to frame it. If you do go back to Schoolhouse Rock and I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill, it
Yeah.
is the same thing in Raleigh, where you propose so many bills at the beginning of session. In the Senate, we actually will file all of our bills through about Tuesday. The House has a little bit more time, but I mentioned the House and the Senate and the companion bills. So thank you so much, Angela, for bringing up both of those
Mhm.
bills. Is we actually are seeing some movement in the House, and that's a good thing, because since it's a companion bill, it sets it up for adoption in the Senate in the event that the House is able to make progress, and that is not uncommon. Oftentimes, something may move in the Senate and then it gets to the House, or it moves in the House and gets to the Senate. So we have seen that the bill, the Crown Act in the House, has been assigned to Judiciary 2. They have various judiciary committees. And so the current phase of this bill that we're in with the call to action is really requesting that folks reach out to the chairs of Judiciary 2, Committee Judiciary 2 in the House, and reach out to the chairs and the leaders of those committees and let them know that you want the Crown Act to be heard and fully considered. Back to what we mentioned about your Crown stories, even folks that want to be an ally for the Crown Act need education. If they have not endured those challenges or struggles, they may not really get it. So, what we're finding is we're doing a lot of education, even among supporters. Folks may be business owners and they want to know about, you know, work safety and can I still have my standards? Yes, you can. This isn't saying that you can't have standards in the workplace, it's saying don't discriminate against anyone just because of their hair and the way it grows out of their head. Let's not promote discrimination. Let's acknowledge that this is a real issue. So as we continue to work forward and advocate, the call to action is to reach out to your own representative and senator. You can go to ncleg.gov and look up representation by county. So find your senators and your House members, look them up, send them an email, let them know that you want support for the Crown Act. But the most critical step is, as it's in committee and judiciary too, to let those chairs of that committee know that you want the Crown Act to move forward and to receive a hearing. After that, it will be assigned to other committees, but the first step is for it to get out of committee in the House, which is Judiciary 2. So first, reach out to your own representative or senator. Second is reach out to the Judiciary Committee. The third step is to also put a time frame on this request. Crossover, so for a bill to become law, it has to make it out of the House and the Senate and to be signed by our governor. So you also need to request that it receives a hearing as soon as possible so that in the Senate, we can review that bill before May 13th. May 13th is a crossover deadline in the General Assembly. So we do want that bill to make it to the Senate before the crossover deadline so that it can be considered to be signed into law. The other advocacy work that we've been working on is you can reach out to your local city council, your local county commissioners. We have seen cities and counties all over the state adopt non-discrimination ordinances that include not discriminating against someone because of their hair. Durham is included in that, as well as Durham County, Greensboro, Mecklenburg County. So all over the state, folks have been adopting local non-discrimination ordinances. School boards have been considering these policies for their schools because the current legislation does focus on the workplace. So the statute that it's based in does deal with just kind of workplace discrimination and what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable. So our next bite of the apple in another session, we'll kind of do a deeper dive into the schools. But just to get the ball rolling, we wanted to be really specific about workplace and make that economic argument about folks not being denied wages or opportunity through the workplace. The other piece that we are looking out for is having Crown Day officially proclaimed in the state of North Carolina. So we have reached out to Governor Cooper and his office requesting that July 3rd be announced as Crown Day for the state of North Carolina. And we also were able to work with Governor Cooper's office so that they've updated their equal employment opportunity policies to say that you cannot discriminate against someone because of their hair. So do want to highlight, we had a major win through the Cooper administration in that they changed those state policies, and the HR manuals will now say that you should not discriminate against someone because of their hair.
Wow. That's phenomenal. So I will have these 3 or 4 steps very clearly posted in the Hair Stories Project Facebook group and to my email folks and on my social media, so you know specifically what you need to do. This would be statewide, so even though positive things are happening within some of the local counties, statewide covers everything, right?
Everything.
So
Exactly.
this county could have it and this one not, and
Yes.
so let's have it happen across the state. Crown Day, that just sounded really good. It just I'm showing my age, but I'm 58. I don't care. So it reminded me of when people don't know that the Happy Birthday song that Stevie Wonder wrote was in order to get Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day as a federal holiday.
Did
So
not
I
know
remember, when that came out that summer, that was what it's all about. And that's a song that came to
Yeah. But honestly, Angela, real quickly, I'm glad that you bring that up, because also when folks ask about bills and how long it takes to get things done, when Dr. King was assassinated in 1968, that was for the first time someone in Congress said we need to acknowledge his birthday as a holiday.
Mhm.
And back to the happy birthday song with Stevie Wonder, it wasn't until 1983
That's right.
that, so
That's
we don't want the Crown Act to take that
no.
long, but I want to put in perspective that change takes time, and we are in this for the long haul, no matter how long it takes. Because sometimes if it's a new concept to some folks, it may take a while for it to take off. And also skipped over at the congressional level, it has made it out of the US House. So
Okay.
also
Right.
at the US Senate level, they can reach out to their US senators and say, when it makes it to the Senate as well, that they want folks to support the Crown Act at the federal level. But again, at the state level, we still need to step up to the plate so that no matter where you are in North Carolina, you are not subjected to hair discrimination.
Absolutely. Oh, I love it. I love it. Guys, I'm gonna check on each one of you, whoever's listening, to make sure you really, because you just kind of think, oh, you put it in there and everything is just gonna take
Yes,
care of itself, or it's just kind of having someone pay attention is where the
yes.
change happens.
Hmm.
We the people,
We the
we
people.
the people. Citizenry is a participatory sport, right?
Yes,
It's not a sideline sport. So I just want to kind of call everyone's attention to that. And the other thing that I want to go back, not to take a long time, but just to point out kind of this new thing that I heard you say around these hair stories and these
hmm,
interviews that I've been doing. And that is the idea of consistency,
yes,
that is a pressure on us, which is inconsistent with Black women and our hair culturally.
hmm,
Individuals are different,
hmm,
but culturally, because our hair is magic, it can do
yes,
so many things that we play in our hair. We try different things and we look good in different things. And
absolutely.
so this idea to go from um, wanting to be seen, and then knowing that if you change, people have an excuse to not see you all over
Yes,
again.
very true. Very
It's
true.
there's pressure there,
It is.
and it's really why I wanted to capture these stories. I know we talk about our hair a lot. It's a
Hmm.
good thing, but I really wanted it to be almost a repository of stories. So it's not only these interviews, it's really bringing things together so that when people want to understand what's the big deal about the Crown Act or
Yes.
some other thing, or why are Black women complaining about this still when I
Mhm.
see all this natural hair stuff and so many more magazines with curly hair and things like that. It's because some things are just on the surface,
Yes.
and when the rubber hits the road, it's not changing as much as we think it's changing. And so
Mhm.
I really want to applaud you for this work that you're doing,
Yeah.
for being here. We're a little over time. I'm so sorry, but please take a moment to tell the audience how we can help you to make
Yeah.
whatever progress you want to make in the things that you're really passionate about.
Yes, thank you so much, Angela. And I think in the spirit of, your roots and your crown and your story, first and foremost, continue to share your hair story. It is very easy for legislators to ignore something if they say, well, no one in my district has brought this to my attention. It must not be an issue. I'm able to say, first and foremost, I'm also supporting the Crown Act because I have constituents that live in District 20 in Durham that have shared their stories with me. Just last week, I had a constituent to email me and say, I have a case of hair discrimination myself. How do I report that? What do I do about that? So I think we need to ground it in, as you mentioned, Angela, folks feel that it's no longer an issue. Yes, it is. So constantly remind folks of how it's really impacting their life. It's not just fashion or a choice.
Yeah.
This is discrimination that can truly impact your livelihood. If
Mhm.
you are a young woman that, has twist out to a fro, they shouldn't tell you to sit in the back of the class, because of your hair. We have instances of that right here in North Carolina. So I think first is for folks to tell their story. Again, reach out to your own legislator. They need to hear from people that they represent. But no matter where you are, again, email the leadership of Judiciary 2 in the House. on the NC LEG website, ncleg.gov. You go to House, click on Standing Committees. Judiciary 2 is a standing committee. Reach out to the leadership of that committee. You can see the chairs listed. You can click on that leader and see, have you had two terms, 3 terms, 4 terms? The more terms, that means you have seniority. Those are definitely the members that you really need to highlight. The same for the Senate. Reach out to our judiciary chairs in the Senate and say, we want to hear, the Crown Act. We wanted to have a hearing. Then from there, you can email. You can still even request to meet with your legislator if you're led to do that. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and we oftentimes have Delta Days at the Capitol. I think the Links in April have a lobby day coming up. So whatever organization you're a part of, I believe Jack and Jill, I believe they have adopted the Crown Act nationally. So there could be an organization that's already advocating, have those lobby days, that the Crown Act is listed as something that you want to push for and advocate for. And also reach out to Governor Cooper's office and say that you want July 3rd to be proclaimed as Crown Day. And if you have any other questions and want to reach out to me directly, you can find me on all social media platforms at Natalie, Natalie 4 FORNC on all social media. And you can also, or should, look up the National Crown Campaign. So that's the Crown Act. Follow the Crown Act. You can see nationwide the other states and municipalities. You'll see some dots on that map in North Carolina as a result of local areas that have adopted the Crown Act. And we also have the Crown Campaign. So definitely follow the Crown Act and the Crown Act campaign. You can become an advocate. We have events all over the state virtually. So we'd love for you to join our village, to join our network, and continue to help us with this movement so that we can make sure that this bill is seriously considered this session.
Beautiful. And so that's Black women and Black men, all of our allies.
Yes.
This is an amazing way to show up. It's a source of pain for us. And we appreciate your support. And I appreciate, Sen Murdock, you coming, spending some time with me today. This is just phenomenal. I saw the article, then I saw you on Twitter, and I just thank you for saying yes. Thank you. I'm sure my audience appreciates that too. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Thanks, guys, for watching. I will send out the recording and I'll make it available to Sheena for you as well.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.